good, you guys? What's happening? What's happening? What's happening? How often do you need to trim your locks? Trim your locks. You don't even need to trim your locks if you don't want to. The only reason you would trim your locks is if you want to go to a shorter length or continue the length that you're at now, or you're trying to reduce the amount of frizz around the lock. These are the only two reasons you should be trimming your locks. You shouldn't be trimming them for any other reason. If you're going through an issue like had alopecia or overprocessed your hair and now your ends are becoming really thin or starting to break down, you can always have those repaired. You don't have to trim those off, but you can trim those off if you want. But you don't have to get trims on a regular basis if you don't want to. Do locks have split ends? Did you just ask that? No, locks don't have no split ends. Will the ends start to break down over time? Definitely. If you're not maintaining them properly, they'll definitely break down over time, especially when you get to that point when your butt length are longer. But locks inherently do not have split ends, and you don't have to trim them like you would your natural hair to continue to get them to thrive and grow. Why would you get locks? What is the whole purpose behind it? One of the biggest reasons people get locks is for the journey, the self-discovery, the understanding of one's hair texture, the understanding of oneself is that journey. That's why people get locks. Second is lifestyle, the look, the feel, the versatility. 3 is the amount of maintenance. You don't have to do as much maintenance on your hair and manage your hair as aggressively when you have locks. That doesn't mean you have no maintenance. You have low maintenance, not no maintenance. Always keep that in mind. I know personally, I started my locks when my daughter was born, and I started them the same month she was born, and I've had locks ever since. People start them on occasions to represent new journeys and new things, new comings of being. There's a multitude of why people start their locks, and we love them because of it. Our locks are amazing and so easy to manage on a regular basis. The next question we got here is, how long is your retwist really supposed to last? Now, I know you guys are kind of confused by this question because you want it to last as long as possible, which isn't always good for your hair, good for your scalp, and maintaining growth. So always keep in mind, really, your retwist is gonna last maybe 4 to 5 days before frizz starts to happen, before little hairs start to pop up and sweat starts to build up on your scalp. So 4 to 5 days is usually when your retwist is gonna look its freshest. After that, it's gonna start to age, and it's gonna start to age out. Usually around a month to 6 weeks time, it's usually at its fullest, and at that point, it's time to get retouched up. Now you can touch up sooner than that, and you can touch up later than that, depending on the type of look that you're going for. If you want a look that is more maintained, then you'll touch up your hair a lot more. If you want something that's a little bit freer, a little bit fuller, then you can wait. For most people that get their locks remainance, it's in between a 3 to 6 week period. That's pretty normal for most people, but it really comes down to how energetic, how busy you are as a professional, and how you want your hair to look on a regular basis. Can you lighten locks? Yes, you definitely can lighten your locks. This can happen through a lightening process using lightener, powder lightener. You can do this at home, or as always, you probably want to see a professional just because they can keep track of your stability a lot easier. Always seek out a loctician when you're getting ready to color and go lighter, because it's so easy, especially with color, to overprocess your hair, and a loctician can really assist you in making sure that you're not overprocessing your hair. Locks are still hair, they're still susceptible to breaking down if you're continuously coloring over and over and over and over again. The individual hair strands can start to break down within the lock, and the individual locks can start to break down over time. So make sure that you're always using a bond builder when going through and coloring your locks or having your locks colored, and they are using other strengthening techniques to make sure your hair stays strong throughout the process and before and after the process. Personally, I always recommend doing a deep condition before starting a new color service, as well as following up afterward during the first month after you get your color service. So it's super important to keep your hair hydrated, keep it strong before, after, and during all color services. One of the biggest questions we get a whole lot, or we see customers a whole lot with, is thinning locks. Especially for people that manage and take care of their hair at home, thinning locks is a potential threat. And this could come from a multitude of different reasons. If you're thinning at the scalp, it could be an alopecia problem where you're having some issues internally that are affecting your external, or it could be thinning throughout the individual lock strand. Now, there are a couple of ways to maintain this and take care of this problem. One is making sure that you're not heavily coloring your hair. Coloring your hair aggressively over time can start to break down the lock. Two, reducing the amount of styles you get your locks in. Continuously going into style after style after style, eventually your locks will start to break down over time. So make sure that you're reducing those two things if you really want stable locks for a long period of time. Now, if your goal isn't to have locks for a long period of time, you don't want them all the way to your knees, to your ankles, then don't even worry about it. It's not that serious. But if it is, then those are some things to help. Now, there are a couple of ways to fix thinning locks. If they're thinning at the scalp, then that is a problem that we will have to take and tackle, especially looking at a dermatologist to see and identify what type of alopecia or what type of symptoms you're going through that's causing this issue. If it's thinning throughout the strand and it's starting to break down, then there you have a couple of options. Here we could trim those thinning areas off, or we can use hair to infuse into the area and almost create a band-aid using an insta-locking method, which is very similar to microneedling, where we insta-lock kinky, afro-kinky hair in between the areas where you're thinning to create an almost infusion into that area so that's bonded up nice and strong and both of the strands are connected together. Why you have funky locks? It's because you're not drying your hair thoroughly. You have to make sure that you're drying your hair thoroughly on a regular basis. If that's using a bonnet dryer, that's using a blow dryer, that's using a towel, whatever you have to do to make sure to get that moisture out is super important. Leaving a hot, warm environment to breed bacteria and fungus is what's gonna create that smell. And you don't want that. You don't want to smell nobody with that. And you don't want nobody to have that. It's nasty, so make sure to dry thoroughly. Most of this comes with leaving your hair wet. So don't leave your hair wet, dry it thoroughly. I'll see you guys next time.
You find me loser, set me free.